China has launched a new regulation to curb self-immolations after several Tibetan monks burned themselves to death in recent years. The state-run Xinhua news agency says Chinese police in the southwestern province of Sichuan have detained a monk and his nephew for their roles in inciting a series of self-immolations. Xinhua also reported that the two monks confessed to encouraging and publicizing self-immolations under orders from the Dalai Lama and his followers. Han Bin has this report.
The Kurden monastery in Aba County, a historic site for Tibetan Buddhists, but it has taken on a darker meaning recently, becoming a center of self-immolations over the past 3 years. Most of the attempts are reported in this Aba Tibetan Chang Autonomous Prefecture. Nearly all victims are clergy members that belong to the Kurden monastery. The statement says that monk Lorang Kongchok and his nephew goaded 8 people to set themselves on fire, 3 of whom died. According to his confession and police investigation, Lorang encouraged others to self-immolate, telling monks that self-immolation was not against Buddhist doctrines, and those who did it would be considered heroes. He added that he acted on the instructions of the Dalai Lama and his followers by contacting some key figures from a Tibet independence organization within the Dalai group. Tibetan officials have on various occasions condemned those who ignited the self-immolations.
I feel very distressed over the self-immolations of Tibetan monks. Every life is precious. Self-immolation goes against Buddhist doctrines. Those who support, instigate, and do these acts are immoral and should be severely punished.
Many Tibetans believe that self-immolations disturb the harmonious social order. The Chinese government says it has protected freedom of religious activities and improved the well-being of Tibetan areas through rapid economic development over the past decades. It accuses the Dalai Lama of inciting more suicides.
Self-immolation activities are cruel and inhumane. Members of the Dalai clique not only failed to condemn the incidents, but also publicized them to inspire more such acts. I hope reporters seek truth from facts.
China has issued a new regulation stating that based on criminal law, people who in any form incite or help others perform self-immolation will be tried for homicide. This regulation has been jointly drafted by the Ministry of Public Security, the Supreme People's Court, and the Supreme People's Procuratorate. By resolving the issues behind the self-immolations, the Chinese government is expected to help the public understand the truth and the Dalai Lama's so-called neutral stance on self-immolations. But the key is to look into the root causes of the extreme activities and save more lives in the future. Han Bin, CCTV.
Meanwhile, China's leading newspaper, the People's Daily, has released an editorial to condemn the Dalai clique's efforts to promote Tibetan independence. The editorial says the separatist activities will not influence democratic reforms in Tibet, and their efforts for Tibetan independence are doomed to fail.
The People's Daily reports that recently the Dalai clique declared 2013 as the year of Tibetan independence and has been preparing for a series of pro-Tibet independence activities to make Tibetan independence one of the world's most important topics in the coming year. The clique has also planned many activities to exaggerate the influence of the Nobel Peace Prize that the Dalai Lama was awarded in 1989. The editorial adds that a figure like the Dalai Lama is unworthy to receive the Nobel Peace Prize, saying he has constantly supported and instigated many self-immolations in Tibetan region, where people should enjoy harmonious and prosperous lives. The article detailed tactics by the Dalai clique over the years, saying the clique has been organizing many activities to promote a false idea that the situation in Tibet is very intense and unstable. The commentary said they manipulate the media to make some people believe Tibetans are discontent with the Chinese government's Tibetan policy. Then they support and instigate self-immolations in Tibet to prove this point. But their tactics have been widely challenged in the international community. The Dalai clique never reports the fact that democratic reforms ended serfdom in Tibet. The Dalai Lama also doesn't fulfill his duty to serve the Tibetan people, even though he is regarded by some as a spiritual leader. Instead, he violates religious doctrine and instigates monks to burn themselves. Tibet has seen fast and prosperous economic and social development in the past 50 years, but during his years in exile, traveling the world, the Dalai Lama has described Tibet as living hell. He claims that old Tibet with its system of serfdom was a free place. The Dalai clique's aims to establish the idea of the year of Tibetan independence in 2013 is the beginning of restoring a feudal serf system, unifying politics and religion in Tibet. But the Dalai clique's efforts are completely in vain. The democratic reforms in Tibet have replaced serfdom. Tibetan people will never choose a political system of unifying politics and religion, and China has constantly warned the Dalai clique their moves are doomed to fail.
Heard to quote Buddhist scriptures. Instead, he spent most of his time talking about self-immolation, an act that, so he said, made someone a hero. Losang Gonchok claimed to have contacts in India. The foreign media, he said, would turn anyone who committed self-immolation into a hero. Hearing this repeatedly, Losang Tsedru was convinced, and so he killed himself in a Naba street. 12 days later, on March the 28th, 2012, another self-immolation occurred, also in Naba. This time it involved a monk named Tsinam from an isolated monastery in the Jaro region. He was dead before rescuers could reach him. Police investigations uncovered the fact that he had studied at Kirti Gompa in 2011, where he had come into contact with Losang Gonchok. Tsinam was just 19 years old and from a small remote monastery. He was naturally overawed by the Gashi Losang Gonchok, whose idea of self-immolation to hero began to take root in Tsinam's mind. Just as he had done with Losang Tsedru, Losang Gonchok promised Tsinam he would send news of his self-immolation to India and thus make Tsinam a hero. At 9:41 in the morning of August 10th, 2012, another self-immolation occurred, this time in Ngaba's Myanmar district.